Hey everyone, I'm Arthur and this is the Projecting channel. Please be welcome. In this video, I want to share the best way of building responsive web applications. Um, this technique I have been using for a while now, and I feel it's really efficient and simple to apply. So I would love to share with you guys and also know if you have any other techniques to build responsive applications. So let's take a look here. Um, I always start setting the highest resolution of for the application that is the highest resolution that users might have on their screen. That is to use as a base um, for start the user interface. So I usually use this value here, 2560 per 14, 1440 pixels. This is a extra large resolution. After that, I include the queries.scss file. This file was created by me and is available on my GitHub. I'll leave the link on the description. We will take a look in this file in a bit. And after applying these queries, all we have to do is work with the run unit in each and every application style. That is margins, paddings, font sizes, heights, widths, anything in our application will be set in the run unit. And what does that do? The run unit is a measure relative to the root element. So it everything will keep the proportion of the HTML tag in our case because that's the root element, the HTML tag font size. The default value for that on browsers is 16 pixels. So everything we set as 1 rem will have the same 16 pixels. If we set it to 2 rems, it goes to 32 pixels. And this is a great way of building the responsiveness of our applications because uh, no matter the resolution, everything will keep the proportion defined on the UI creation. So to understand this a little bit more, let's jump into this file here, this carries file. Um, this file is the one responsible for doing the magic. So I'm here in the GitHub into the queries.scss file of this project. And let's take a look here to understand better what this logic do. If you are not using preprocessors in your project, you can also use this logic and this technique. You just have to copy this content and place into a SAS to CSS converter. I have one open right here. It's pretty simple. But before I check that, let's just first understand what's happening here in this logic. We start here by setting some base values, that is the base font size which is applied to the HTML tag here. And also the base resolution. As I said, this is the one I tend to use. So 2560 per 1440 pixels is the highest expected resolution for the application. And on that resolution, the HTML tag will have a 32 pixels font size. That seems a lot, but we will understand just now because why this greater value instead of the default 16 of browsers, why we start in a upper value. Next thing, we set the proportions here. 16 per width, 16 per 9 height. That is the most common screen proportion on devices, on desktops. And this is used for creating the breakpoints into these queries. Then we have here the rule multiplier. So here we are setting how many times of the proportion we will create each breakpoint, and in each breakpoint we will take down 1 pixel from the HTML tag font size. By doing that, in any lower resolution other than this, we will keep the proportion of the styles set it as with the ren unit. So up here are just definitions, and the logic actually happens down here in 2 blocks. This could have some comments to help out, right? But once we understand it, there's not. It's pretty easy to know what's going on here. So we have 2 loops, 2 while loops here. They are doing pretty much the same thing. The difference is in the first one, we are creating breakpoints to the landscape orientation. That is when the screen width is higher than its height. And down here, it's the same logic, but for the portrait orientation, which is the opposite when the height is higher than the screen width. So inside this loop, as I said, we are taking, we are creating breakpoints here. We are taking down from the base resolution some pixels, which are defined by the proportion and the rule multiplier. This math here results in 5. So right here, we multiply 5 by the proportion. This creates our breakpoint value. In the width case, 16 times 5 gives us 80 pixels. So every 80 pixels that the screen width is lower than our base resolution, base width resolution, we take down here 1 pixel. And for the height, it's 5, this value here, this math is right here. So 5 times the height proportion, which is 9. This gives us 45 pixels. So every 45 pixels, the height goes down, we take 1 pixel out of the HTML font size. That will make the all styles applied with rem unit go down within the HTML font size definition. So this is essentially what this loop is doing. This here do just the same. It just applies the logic for the portrait orientation, and you can notice here on the width variable inside this loop, we use the height proportion here because the values are inverted. Here we are using the height as our width. Hopefully that's making sense to you. Yeah, so this is what this file do. It does all the magic for working with responsiveness. It's pretty good. And to be more clear, let's check when we convert it from SAS to CSS. I'm here on the online converter. So pasting that file content here and clicking to convert, I get this output. And right here is much easier to understand the logic. So we have the font size HTML definition up here, 32 pixels. Then you can see all media queries here happening for every breakpoint. So if we see this value here, we're going to see that it is 80 pixels less than our base width. And for the height, we can see that is 45 pixels less than our starting base height. So if any of these conditions are true, either the max width or the max height, and we are on a landscape orientation for both cases, the HTML font size goes to 31 pixels. So imagine everything we had set to one rem, every style we had set to one rem in our application on a 2560 per 1440 pixels resolution, we had the same 32 pixels. Now, if we get down a bit our resolution, like if we get down our width, our screen width a little bit, the HTML tag will get a 31 pixel font size, and this will reflect in every style with a rem unit applied. So that same one rem that before had the value of 32 pixels will now have the value of 31 pixels. And this gives us a really refined way of keeping all UI proportions and sizes across all screens, all resolutions. We can see here that the loop will create breakpoints up and down until one font size pixels for the HTML tag, and that is for a really small screen. You can see here max width of 80 pixels, that is our minimum value, and the max height of 45 pixels. So this gives a really solid way of having responsive web apps. We can see that after the landscape orientation rules finish here, we start to see the portrait orientation starting at 31 pixels as well. So yeah, this is pretty much it, what this file is doing. Again, if you are not using preprocessors as SAS, you can just convert it and use straight the CSS into your project. Just remember to include this logic into your main CSS file, and also to apply all styles, all application styles using the REN unit. Okay, so to wrap this up, let's check this Celestial Oracle project, which is one of the projects that I use this technique. It's a really simple UI project. Okay, as you can see, there is not that many elements here, but let's check the responsive queries working out. So I pressed F12 here on my keyboard and on Chrome, and right here I get this device toolbar option where I can change the screen resolution. Right here we are seeing a resolution for an iPhone, which is this here. As you can see, the all proportions are pretty close to the original UI. The font sizes are the same proportion, the button the same proportion. We have a little bit of more space on the height, so that's okay, that's normal. But um, we can see it's on a great proportion still. Now let me place here our base resolution, which is this one, the one I always start developing on this resolution. So this is how the screen was built. And if we see here on the styles definitions, we can see that. So there we go. You can see that the HTML has a font size of 32 pixels. This is our base. Now, if we start reducing the screen width, we can see already that the font size here of the HTML tag is going down among our screen width. That's pretty good because everything here is set on RAM units, as you can see here on the bubble element. The font size is 2.25 RAM. So no matter how much or the value of the resolution, this value is always the same. I don't have to set a group of rules for every screen breakpoint, because we have small screens, we have medium screens, we have large screens, we have extra large screens. If you at any point already worked on responsiveness, you know that we have so many screen resolutions, and this technique allows us to just control the HTML font size, and everything else will adjust perfectly. So as you can see, no matter how much my screen changes, it still keeps a great proportion of font sizes, margins, paddings. So it's a great technique. Now the last detail I want to point out is on a mobile resolution. As you can see, the proportions are still looking good, but depending on your interface, on how your application is. If you have too many elements on mobile, perhaps on tablets as well, you might have to do some manual adjusts. For example, imagine you have two blocks there, one side by side, that is on a desktop screen. When we place this screen on a mobile, even though the font sizes and margins and paddings using this technique will still be um, suitable, these two blocks, you might need to place them one above another, for example. So on mobiles, you might have to do some extra work there to get to a solid responsiveness. But that was the technique I wanted to share. If you want to check out this project and actually meet an angel, please do so. You can find this project right here on my GitHub. Right here, you have the link. And hopefully, I could help you somehow with this responsive technique. And if you know any way of doing this better or to enhance this technique, please do share. Okay, thank you so much for being here and see you next time.